Welcome to Home Health 360, a podcast presented by AlayaCare. I'm your host, Jeff Howell, and this is the show about learning from the best in home health care from around the globe. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Home Health 360, where we speak with home health and home care leaders from across the globe. Today, we are reaching out across the pond and speaking with one of the co-founders of one of the fastest growing home care franchises in the UK. Radfield Home Care is a highly regarded, award-winning care service for elderly people wishing to remain living in their homes. A top 20 home care winner for 4 years in a row, and awarded one of the top 100 overall franchises in the UK. Alex Green, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff.
So, Alex, I've read a few articles on your growth. Bring us through a little bit of a history lesson on Radfield.
Yeah, sure. So we're in our 40th year as a brand. Radfield started as a residential home for elderly people, started by my mum and dad in 1982. It was small, it was family, it was where we grew up, so it was home. And that's kind of where everything started for us. Our mum was a nurse, and she wanted to do something to sort of bring her skills to bear and build a business for the family. So she and my dad founded Radfield, a care home. And then from there, they got their parents involved. So my grandparents all helped in the home. And our first, you think about sort of where we were in 1982, our first clients that came in were Victorians. So we had one gentleman there who had attended Queen Victoria's funeral as a child. So it was a very different world. Very different care was being provided for people. But I think what really made it work was the family values. So the way the home operated was like it was our home. You know, there were kids running around. That was me and my sister Hannah. And there were the older people there being looked after, and all the care professionals came in, and it was a family unit. So that was really where everything came from, I suppose. That was our foundation. And then in 2008, we had a discussion with our parents. They decided they wanted to retire. I'd been off doing various other things, so working in finance, working in community development, community radio. And Hannah had been off with the medical career, so she'd become a GP. And there was a discussion had around how do we continue family business, the family legacy. And that was where Radfield Home Care started. Because I think we realized times had changed a little bit. The sort of market for the type of care home that we'd operated up till then had changed. People wanted to stay at home instead of going into a residential. And, you know, the residential care sector was moving much more towards the elderly, mentally infirm or nursing care. And that wasn't really what we did particularly. So Radfield Home Care started. And that was where things kicked off, really. I suppose we started building our home care business in Shrewsbury, and then we expanded that out ourselves into neighbouring areas. And then after a few years of probably 8 years of doing that, we realised that it was time to take the move into franchising. That's what happened. We started to build the franchise business, people who could bring our values to life in their own communities, who would be invested, who would be committed, who would share our passion and values, and then bring Radfield to life in each area that they wanted to operate in. So that was that's where we came from. That's how we've got to where we are now.
And do you still have a residential home? Is it like, what would be the breakdown between home care and resi?
Yeah, we don't operate a residential home anymore. So our parents decided to retire. They sold the premises and retired, and we carried on with the home care business.
Got it.
We still operate our own home care business in Shrewsbury, where we're based. So our local office is our pilot office, if you like. It's where we test things, it's where we drive the standards through. And then we have the franchise network.
Yeah, I love it when franchisors are eating their own dog food, and you can you're the end user as well. So is it strictly non-medical services then?
Yeah, it's probably a bit unique in the UK because we have the NHS. Most medical services are provided through the NHS. So unlike other markets like India and certainly other markets around the world where the home care tends to sit alongside medical care in the home, it doesn't really work here because most people don't want to pay for medical care in their home because they get it free through the NHS. So we're a little bit of a unique marketplace. So yeah, it's all care. None of it's medical.
Okay. And then would you have NHS as a payer or having any government payers, or is it strictly private pay?
We work mostly in the private sector. So most of our clients are private. They contract natively with us. We do work for local authorities. We do work for the NHS where appropriate. So we often help out where there's lack of capacity within the sort of the existing provision. So they'll say, can you provide care for this client? We need some extra capacity creating. Sometimes it's around specialist care that we can offer a service that they need. But yeah, I mean, there is a mix, but it tends to be more private that we focus on.
So I have to ask you, in going to your website, I went down the path of what's the journey for someone who wants to become a franchisee. And I've been on probably thousands of home care websites, and this is the first home care franchise aptitude test that I've ever seen. And I thought it was brilliant. So bring me through, how did that come to be? And I think, the feeling that I had when I was there was that there is a standard that you have, and it really kind of flipped the mindset of, oh, hey, I actually have to be qualified and apply for this, rather than, in a lot of websites, you have the opposite feeling where they're happy to have people come by. So I'm positive that you do this for segmenting and weeding out, the good potential franchisees from the bad. And so bring me through, what does that journey look like if someone went to your website, went down that quiz?
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's good to hear that was the impression you got from it, Jeff, because that's the intention.
Right.
The first reason we built that was we deal with a huge number of inquiries. To get down to one person who is suitable, appropriate, wants to do it, is in a position to do it, we're talking to maybe 150, between 100 and 200 people. So there's a lot of low-level inquiries that you have to go through. So that creates a lot of work for us. So what we thought was actually, if we put a bit of a test in place for someone to kind of self-assess, and maybe we'll be able to self-select, or they'll be able to self-select them out of that process if it's not right for them. Because for most people, it's not right. It's not an easy business to get into. It's a very rewarding business in many ways, but it's not easy. So people who are looking for, a pure money-making thing, or something that they're hands off and they can just sit there and let it run, it's not for them. So we'll put this test in place just to kind of put a little bit of a barrier, a little bit of an assessment up in place for people to use. So that then hopefully if they go through that and then they still contact us, they'll be a little bit more kind of understanding what's needed, what's necessary.
The fact that you named it an aptitude test, I thought that word really stood out to me. That I just thought this is a very smartly designed thing. And, it sort of challenges those prospective franchisees right away that maybe this isn't for you, right? Or maybe it is, and it's even better for you than you even think right now. And there's something to learn as you go through this aptitude test and you're being asked these 13 questions that I thought it was just, so many companies should be doing these. You see sometimes what are called quiz funnels to really help qualify who your prospect or buyer is.
Yeah.
And, you guys are certainly the only home care company that I've seen do this.
Yeah, it's such an important purchase, if you like. It's, we don't sell franchises. We find people who want to join us and be partners with us. And I think the thing that kind of really stands out is in franchising, there's a huge amount of psychology that sits behind the relationship. So the psychology of finding the right people who approach it in the right way, who understand what they're getting into, and also understand how to get the most out of it. It's really interesting when there's an organisation called Franchise Relationship Institute in Australia, run by Greg Nathan. And they've done a lot of work into researching what are the main things that make someone successful in franchising. So for a franchisee, a franchise partner as we call them, the two key things that will make them successful is having sort of family backing and support. So social capital, the ability to build their business, and then brand passion comes in second. So those are the two absolutely most important things for someone to be successful as a franchisee. So it means you have to find the right brand for you. There has to be a marriage where this is on average 8 years of your life that you're committing a lot of money, a lot of time. So it has to be a passionate marriage where you found the right brand that you're committed to and you're going to work well. And then from our perspective as the franchisor, then the relationship really works. There's an understanding of what we have to put into that relationship, what they have to put into that relationship to make it work. So this whole kind of early assessment is to find those people who are going to make it work and to make sure that we don't have people coming through who are not in it for the right reason.
And the 100 to 200 people you said, is that like per month?
No, it's just kind of a statistic. So if you're looking at, how many leads do you need to generate one sale? So one person signing with you as a franchise partner, they're the kind of, it's pretty rough and ready, but you're having to talk to that volume of people.
Right. So you're rejecting over 99%, really.
Yeah, from early inquiries. Yeah, definitely. I mean, most people who sort of come to you are not serious. They don't have a lot of intent. They may be contacting every single franchise that they can find to find out what they want to do. They don't know it's home care. They don't know what they want to do. So, so there's a sort of weeding out process that you go through the funnel. Those people kind of narrow down, and then you end up finding a few people.
Yeah, and I've done the same thing where anytime I've ever hired a freelancer to help out with something, and I know I'm going to get a couple hundred responses, I actually have them go fill in a form and make it a little bit painful, and then you get the part-timers weed themselves out. So, speaking of franchises, so when COVID hit, I'm curious what demand for new franchises looked like, if you guys actually just kind of shut down expansion plans and it was just all hands on deck to support your existing franchisees. How did all that look?
Yeah, it was interesting times at the beginning of it all because no one knew quite what to expect. What we experienced, I think we were fortunate that we prepared early. So I think in February, we were making plans for pandemic because we saw the headlines from around the world. What do? We either sit there and hope it goes away or we do some planning and if the worst comes, then we're ready for it. So we did that planning, which was really good in the end. More on the care side of the business than the franchise sales side of the business or franchisee support side. In terms of what happened, went quiet for a few months, and then the inquiries started to pick up. So through the lockdown, we had a lot of people contacting us wanting to talk about franchising. I'd say low level of intent, but a lot of people wanted to find out what their options were, maybe worrying about whether their job was going to come back or not, not knowing what the future held. It's a big shift, isn't it? A change of life. Everything's up in the air. So we had a lot of inquiries. We didn't have any sales, so no one was in a position to take anything through. But that's understandable, while everyone's still in lockdown and things are so uncertain. We didn't move anyone through to sales. But I think as soon as then the lockdowns ended, things started to get a bit more back to normal. We certainly saw a pickup, people coming through with some serious intent. More recently, we're seeing a lower volume of inquiries now than we were through the lockdown. But we're seeing a much higher level of intent in those inquiries. So we're converting more of those people. And I'm not entirely sure what's driving that, but I suppose maybe people through the lockdown who were inquiring, they did their inquiries, they decided what they were going to do. And now people who are inquiring are a little bit more serious. They've had that time to think and they know this is right for them. And we are seeing that. A lot of the people we're talking to now are coming to us saying, I want to do home care. This is my mission. This is what I want to do. And I want to find the brand that's right for me to do care. Because I suppose of all of our experiences through the pandemic of seeing the impact care can have with people, maybe, having personal experience of loss or having people who've struggled through that. Certainly something that has resonated with people.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think with everyone having gone through such a, sort of black swan event where, everyone's doing a lot of soul searching, and if you've gone through the great resignation, or even if you haven't resigned, but you're just doing this reflection that COVID has caused. Love the idea. I've never heard anyone explain it in that way where before COVID, you had tire kickers, and then now you have the fortunate circumstance of having fewer leads that you have to go through, but there's a very high conversion rate. I'm curious, have you noticed something similar with caregiver applications?
That's a different story entirely. It was quite interesting during the pandemic. We had a particular sort of rule that was created in the UK where people who were furloughed from their jobs could work in the care sector. So they were allowed to be furloughed, they were allowed to keep the furlough money, but they were also allowed to work as care professionals as well. So we had a lot of people come to us to work for us through the lockdown. I suppose partly because they were doing nothing else, partly because they wanted to contribute, make a difference. So we had people coming from office jobs, from management jobs. We had cabin crew. We had all sorts of people coming through, working for us as care professionals through the lockdown. And that was quite different, quite unique. We're lucky. We haven't seen a great resignation. So I think maybe the way we work with our care professionals is testament to that. We look after people. Each of our offices is a family. There's a lot of support for our care professionals, and we worked hard on that through the pandemic. But we are seeing, as a country, we're seeing it's pretty tough recruitment market at the moment. So finding new people who want to come in to work in the care sector is hard. And it's not just the pandemic. Of course, we had Brexit before that, where the rules on immigration changed substantially. So whereas before the care sector had relied heavily on people coming into the UK to work, not so much us. The NHS has been hit hard by that, and a lot of other care sectors, sort of areas of the care sector have been hit hard by that. So we had a big reduction in the number of people coming in who were able to work in care. The recruitment market in care is very tough at the moment in the UK. And a few months ago, a rule change happened again around immigration, because I think they recognised that maybe there needed to be a little bit more flexibility with that. So they changed the rules so that created a sponsorship scheme. So if you find a candidate from abroad who you want to sponsor to come in, there's a lot of T's and C's around that. But that had opened the floodgates. So we are getting inundated with applications of people from all over the world who want to come into the UK and work as care professionals. So it's been a real roller coaster.
Yeah, I know in the United States, sort of a similar issue with, migration and changes to policies. And there certainly are, industries that rely on immigrants that come in and do that work. What are your thoughts on, what are some big things that have changed in light of COVID, whether, either you're doing virtual visits or how you're tracking caregivers? Are you doing any virtual online training for them? Do fewer people come to the office? What would you say are the biggest changes on how you guys operate with respect to how COVID has changed those things?
Yeah, it was interesting. So through the lockdowns, we anticipated a lot of people would cancel care. So we even wrote to all of our clients and said, look, guys, if you want us to stop coming to see you, we completely understand. It's about safety. It's about keeping safe. So we wrote to everybody. We made that offer, and we didn't have one client say no. So throughout the lockdown, we had a consistent level of care that we were providing. So that changed. So it didn't change much. Lockdown didn't impact on how much care we were actually delivering. I think also, there was also a big hesitancy around care homes. So people who maybe were going to go into care homes thought again because of some of the problems that we've had with people catching COVID within the care homes. So a lot of people tried to stay at home. So it didn't really impact demand on that. And I think what we're seeing now, we as a private care provider, we tend to work pretty much closely directly with our clients. So we're not having to deliver volume care where some local authorities are having to move into a lot of virtual visits or using tech in different ways to support that. We're not. Our clients tend to pay us to visit them and do work with them so directly. So we're in a slightly different position. But there are some interesting developments out there around how tech can be used to support care. We've been running pilots in tech for 2-3 years now in terms of the care delivery tech. So we test things, we test until we break them, we test them to find out if they actually work. There's a few systems that we actually use now live with our clients because they're really helpful. But there's a lot of other systems that we've binned because they don't work at the moment. They're not the technology isn't mature enough yet, or for whatever reason. There's some interesting developments around using tablets in the home or little robots. So there's a fantastic company that we work with called OK Each Day, which is a UK company. They have a tablet. And they literally, it's a button that you press that says, I'm okay. And you press it each day. So OK Each Day. It's a great way, really simple.
Yeah.
And I think that's the lesson here is simplicity in what we've found. Because what you can do with that tablet, it doesn't do anything else. You can contact us using it. You can talk to friends and family using it, but it doesn't do anything else. It sits in your house and there's a button and it's programmed to say, if this person doesn't push this button by 10 a.m., we're going to raise an alarm. So if that person doesn't hit the button, they'll get a phone call from a call center to say, are you okay? You didn't press your button today. And if they don't answer, then that will escalate up the chain. So then we might be called or the family might be called to say, this person, we're concerned. They haven't pushed the button. We can't get hold of them. So we raise an intervention. So for someone who is able to live at home without care, but they're a little bit vulnerable, they might be at risk of falling, or the family might be concerned about them, then we can go in and we can put that system into someone's house. We don't have to provide care, but we can, in a kind of very non-intrusive way, make sure that person's okay each day. And there's some interesting things that have come out of that system is, some people don't push their button because they want to get a phone call, because they're lonely. And that's okay too. So the company that runs that system are absolutely fine to have a chat with people on the phone. But that's a great example of a really simple thing that we can use as an early intervention to get people who don't need care yet, but need something. And it's that stopgap. It fills that gap a little bit. Other systems like Genie Connect. So a Genie is like a robot. It doesn't run around, but it sits there. It's just got a screen. And it's an interactive system where you can actually talk to people, keeping contact and keep in communication with people, right the way up to kind of more advanced sensor tech. So, you can fill your house with sensors that detect movement, that do all the work, and with an AI hub in the middle that kind of detects patterns of movement. You've got some way of keeping someone safer than just being on their own. So we have this range of tech now that we've tested. We know how to use it. We know how to implement it. We know where the right use cases are to put that into someone's home where we know it works. It's not going to let them down. We know how to use it. And we can really help people with that. That's some examples, I suppose, of how the pandemic has changed things a little bit, because we're probably a little bit more invested in the technology because there is certainly a need for it. And it's just grown our kind of interest in that area and our work in piloting and championing systems that really make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and certainly provide a competitive advantage as well when families are looking to choose from one brand versus another.
Yeah, and also I suppose there is about a shortfall at the moment in capacity for providing care. So a lot of companies, you phone up and say, can you provide care for my mum? And they say no, because they haven't got the care professionals to provide the care. So in that instance as well, having some system that you can put in that improves the safety level while you're waiting to get a care service in place, that's a great thing as well. So yeah, lots of different ways it can be used.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Speaking of staffing shortages, you had raised some insightful comments about, the reduction in immigration, and now that's sort of back on the upswing. Curious if you have any other thoughts on, in North America, we have the same struggles as well, right? Like, it's a pretty simple problem. It's really supply and demand. But I'm curious, some of the things that I've seen some agencies do is they've automated a lot of their systems so that the time from a caregiver applying for a job to the time that they get the job, in one case, a company went from a process of days down to hours. I'm just curious if what you're seeing in the UK, and obviously it's a very big issue globally, and there's no simple answers. But I'm curious if you're seeing some of the things you might be seeing on how agencies are trying to tackle this challenge.
Yeah, I think it's a case of doing everything really well. There's no one silver bullet that will fix the problem. You've just got to be doing everything as well as you can. So. And I think, we've certainly done that. We implemented a new recruitment platform with an ATS system on the back of it, a new website to kind of help that process. So we've definitely been working hard to streamline the application process, using chatbots to engage candidates, whether they want to talk to us at 3 in the afternoon or 3 in the morning, using, social media platforms with chatbots enabled so that we can have conversations with candidates at any time of day. Lots of kind of that front end stuff. But I think it's about the values that you portray to people and how you portray the job. Because, there's a bit of a perception around care that it's hard work, it's not work people want to do. And I think that's something it's our job to change that. As care providers, as leaders in care, we have to show people what the reality of the work is. And yes, it can be tough, but it's about, finding those people who would do it regardless. They like the fact that it's tough because they're making a difference. Not everybody wants an easy life all the time. Some people want a challenge in life. They want to feel like they're impacting. They're making a difference. They're changing lives. And I think that's the key thing is if we as a care provider can facilitate that, if we can create ways that our care professionals are empowered, they're engaged, they're trained, they're supported, and they're able to make a difference, that's where it really comes in through the recruitment process. We'll find them and they'll stay with us. And that's something we've been working on a lot is how do we communicate that to people? There's some interesting work around brand. What does it mean? You can say things, but you've got to actually show people that you do them. For a brand to come to life, you have to really put your heart on your sleeve and be out there. So something we've been working on is a movement, a campaign that we call Be There. It's very much about being there for people. We are there to help clients be themselves. We're there to help them remain connected to the world, to their families. We're there to inspire them to live their lives the way they want. But I think from a recruitment perspective, that also cascades down into there. So, what are we there to do for our care professionals? Again, we're there to help them be themselves so that they can be connected, be part of a team, part of a family, and be inspired in the work that they're doing because, their work changes lives every day. And we need to celebrate that. To me, it's kind of, a lot of the care worker, the care role is seen quite low down. Whereas paramedics are seen pretty high up. It's a high status job. And actually, if you think about it, they're different. But a care professional going into a client's home can be saving a life, can be making a huge difference every day. And I think it's around addressing that balance and maybe, showing people how important the role is. That's down to us to do that.
Yeah, and certainly health starts with the social determinants of health, the social determinants of health, or like being lonely and having some dignity and and just being happy. That's where everything. That's like the very first part of being healthy. So
I was going to say, yeah, to be happy, you have to be yourself. You have to be whole. And if your life has been impacted by illness, by disability, by things, you're probably not going to be living your best life. You're not feeling your best. So, the job of a care provider is to, as far as they can, address some of those things and put some of those pieces back together. To help that person overcome some of those challenges. And you can't move beyond that until you fix that thing, which is if someone isn't feeling themselves, they're not going to be happy. They're not going to be, able to take part in their life to the fullest. So that's our job primarily, is to make sure that we can do that.
Right. What do you think are some common misconceptions about home care that maybe the average person out there has?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that. I think it's more the fact that people don't care to think about care until they have to. Most people want to get on with their lives and not think about care because it's not nice, is it? Thinking about the fact that you're going to need care one day, not great. So most people forget about it until something happens. And when something happens, it's too late. So the typical thing is, you've got a parent or, a relative who is struggling at home and they refuse to have care and they keep refusing and then they have a fall. They break a hip or something terrible happens. Then they're in hospital. And then all of a sudden, the world of care lands on them and they have to start facing up to the fact that there's this thing called care that they need. So our job, I suppose, is to get people thinking about care sooner, because the sooner people will kind of, and I think it's around changing perception. I think care is difficult because when you accept care into your life, then there's a thing there around losing control, losing self-determination. It's quite a big step to take. And so what we have to do is explain how care can make such a difference to someone's life. So you can actually prevent the fall from happening if you bring in the care a little bit sooner. But that's a real tough battle, because for most people, care is the thing that you do when you have to, not the thing when you want to. So but that's a really important thing for us, is the more we can explain to people the benefits of care, and to overcome that misconception around what care is. It's not the end, it's the beginning. It's a way of preventing deterioration. It's a way of slowing decline and preventing bad things from happening. That actually it's a positive thing to accept some care into your life when you need it. So I think that's probably the biggest misconception, is to get people over that kind of hurdle of accepting care. You don't need a lot of care, just a little bit. But yeah, that's where I go. My conclusion on that one.
Right. Yeah, it's like we need to reach this inflection point. Like, for example, mental health is becoming destigmatized, right? Like, you have celebrities talking about
absolutely,
being in therapy, and it's we just have to reach that point where we as humans love to deny things and love to procrastinate and not admit that just because I'm getting care doesn't mean it's, that's a bad thing. We really need to all be more proactive in life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're bumping up against our time here, Alex. I'll get you out of here on this last question. Give us a reason why you're optimistic about the future of home care.
The main thing is people want to stay at home, and they want to stay at home for as long as possible. And they want to stay healthy and well for as long as possible. So there's a need for home care, massively important. To help people stay at home and live the lives they want to live. And also there's an increasing number of people who are going to need care. The demographics are only going in one direction. There are more and more people every year who need care. And that's absolutely what we're facing up to. So I think there's a demand for it. I think what the pandemic has shown us is that there's an appreciation for care when it's explained and people understand what it is. So I think the perception of care is changing. And I suppose just from another perspective, delivering care in the home environment is undoubtedly the most cost-effective way of providing care. And that's going to be interesting in the UK with the NHS, and how care is provided. It tends to be, in institutions, whereas actually a lot of care can be provided at home, and that's the medical side of things as well. So I think there are real opportunities to look at how care can be more joined up, how social care can be more joined up with the NHS, how we can all work together to provide, the care people need, the care people want in the setting that they want it, which is their home. So I think, there's lots of reasons to be optimistic. And, for Radfield, we've got a 40-year legacy. People who we work with, our experience is enormous, and, that creates a huge amount of opportunity for the future. So people who want to work in this sector, we can really help them build successful businesses.
Well, that's great. You're probably the longest tenured family business that I've come across in home care. So I love your story, it dating all the way back to residential care in 1982. And, I genuinely feel that I am, I'm very grateful to be, part of this podcast, because I get to speak with people and hear all these great stories. And some of my takeaways from today are, love the idea of, the top two things for a successful franchisee actually come down to the family infrastructure and then the passion that they have for your specific brand. No one's ever sort of put that context onto it for me.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you start your own business, it's a lot easier to sort of fall in love with yourself than to treat a franchise as if it's your own. So having that genuine passion and belief and the spirit behind, sort of treating the franchise as if you were the original founder. Love the okay each day. That is so simple that sometimes the best answer is the simplest one. Loved your comment about how, what's the solution? Well, just do everything, to your best ability and just try to do everything well, and that there's just no, magic button that's going to, solve everything for us. Love the idea of the being there for the caregivers and really like caring for the caregivers. And then, you had an insightful comment about, preventing the negative health events proactively, and that, it's not the end, it's the beginning. And We as humans are just very resistant to, sort of doing things until the very last minute. So Alex, thanks for coming on today. This has been tremendous. And, I've taken some notes and I definitely have some takeaways, and I wish Radfield all the best. And I certainly I'm on a couple of UK based newsletters, and that's where I see you guys all the time. So I'm sure you guys are still going to do really well. And I might have to go through the franchise aptitude test just to see what all the questions are. So you can kick me out at the end if I submit the application.
For sure. No worries. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you, Jeff. It's been really good.
Thanks, Alex.
Home Health 360 is presented by AlayaCare. First off, I want to thank our amazing guests and listeners. To get more episodes, you can go to alayacare.com/Home Health 360. That's spelled Home Health 360. Or search Home Health 360 on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. The easiest way to stay up to date on our new shows is to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We also have a newsletter you can sign up for on alayacare.com/Home Health 360 to get alerts for new shows and more valuable content from AlayaCare right into your inbox. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.